Okay, welcome to Week 4 of the Cavalier Insider pregame show. Andrew Ranspacker and Daily Progress columnist Jerry Hootie Ratcliffe. Virginia coming off its biggest win in 3 seasons, knocking off Louisville last week. The 21st ranked Cardinals coming to Scott Stadium and fall 23-21. It was the first win over a ranked opponent for UVA since late 2011 when it won at Florida State. I believe it was a span of 1,029 days, as Mike London said, a long time coming. So looking ahead now, Virginia will try to use that momentum, take it to Provo, Utah, where the task is really tall against a BYU team that's undefeated, ranked 21st in the country. They took Louisville's spot in the AP poll there, a team led by a dark horse Heisman candidate in Taysom Hill, the quarterback, and a team that Virginia knows pretty well. They played each other last year. But before we get to that matchup, Hootie, let's kind of review what happened on Saturday. And again, the theme of this season continues. It's going to be defense dominates, going to create takeaways. The offense just has to do just enough, and the special teams has to be pretty superior, and all 3 of those elements were there on Saturday.
Yeah, I think that's what this team is all about, and just having a chance to win the game in the fourth quarter, and I think that's should be good enough for this team at this point in the program. The offense seems to be getting just a little better each week. They picked up an extra offensive lineman last week, although he was rusty, and that showed. And Grayson Lambert seemed to solidify himself at quarterback as we thought he might, and the defense just keeps getting better and better. As long as they continue to play well, Virginia will have a chance against most anybody. And special teams, that kickoff return unit was dynamite the other day. So, things are going in the right direction. It's just a matter of can they do it on the road against maybe the best team they've played this season.
Yeah, you can definitely make the case for that, considering UCLA right now is a little bit of a mess. Is the Brett Hundley situation. He got hurt on Saturday. Jared Neuheisel to come in. They barely squeaked by Texas. Speaking of Texas, BYU absolutely destroyed Texas earlier this year, 41-7. So there's kind of the task for Saturday. But getting back to the Louisville game real quick, we talked about that defense. It was 2 years ago when Jim Reed was a defensive coordinator. He kind of had a read and react system and things like that. Only created 12 takeaways, 17 sacks. We're just 3 games in here to 2014. This team already has 13 takeaways, I believe 12 sacks. How much credit should Johnson do to take, and how much is it the players? I mean, it's just kind of been almost an ideal fit to this point.
I think a little of both. Tenuta's system doesn't work if the players are no good or if the players don't understand it, in which last year I don't think they understood it. They were tentative, a step slow. A lot of them have testified to that. This year I think, starting back in the spring, they said they were learning it a lot better, and in training camp they had it down pretty well. It allows him to do more things with them if they understand where they're supposed to be and how to do it. And I think bringing Mike Archer on board has been a big plus to that too. So I think it's a little of both. They've got talent, no question about it, and they've got a little depth, which they haven't had a lot of in recent years. And Tenuta's system is so aggressive that if you execute it, you're going to create some havoc, and that's what they've done.
Last thing to kind of wrap up the Louisville game before we look ahead to BYU and the trip to Provo, Utah on Saturday. The interesting thing that happened at the end of that Louisville game, how Virginia won this. They're up 20-7, start of the fourth quarter. Louisville, which was a touchdown favorite, a team a lot of people expected to win. A lot of people expect to contend still in the Atlantic Division in the ACC. Came back. They took the 21-20 lead. You kind of thought, okay, here we go. This is where Virginia, another great effort, kind of like the UCLA game, but another loss. Well, something happened toward the end there. There was a botched punt return by James Quick of Louisville. They had 2 return guys returning the punt. Goes off of his hands. Kelvin Rady pounces on it deep in Louisville territory. And 4 plays later, Ian Fry hits a clutch kind of pressure situation, 42-yard field goal to give Virginia that 23-21 lead. And there's some significance to recovering that fumble by Kelvin Rainey, because how many times the last 2 years has Mike London and his team not gotten that bounce? Or how many times has that gone the opposite way? I think we think back to Khalil Shepard a couple years ago, fumbling up punt return with the game on the line, things like that. This time Virginia gets that bounce. Is this kind of a sign of things have changed a little bit?
And Dominique Terrell at Pittsburgh last year too.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, you would hope that for their sake that a few bounces are going to go their way after being on the opposite end, as you mentioned. But a lot of times you got to be able to take advantage of those situations. And even though momentum seemed to have swung when they put Will Gardner back in the game, which I thought pulling him in the third quarter was a huge mistake by Bobby Petrino.
I agree.
But I think you got to take advantage of any mistakes that your opponent makes, and sometimes last year they couldn't do that. Mm-hmm. This year they've been able to. They were fortunate to win the game because of that, but Fry has really shown that he's maybe one of the best kickers in the country, hitting those long field goals, and particularly that one to win the game.
Yeah, 3 for 3 on Saturday, including a 47-yarder to go along with that 42-yarder. So obviously he looks back to good health. A guy last year who was out with that hip injury since the Pitt game, and Alec Vizena kind of do double duty. Now that Fry is back at kicker, Vizena fully punter. Again, we talked about that special teams unit. Those are two big pieces as well as kind of signs of this Virginia team on the rise at 2-1. And but this Saturday gets its biggest test of the year, traveling to Provo, Utah to take on BYU. We will preview that matchup here the next segment. Cavalier Insider pregame show. Andrew Rancepacker, Jerry Ratcliffe. Time to break down Virginia's matchup with the BYU Cougars. Kick time 3:30 Eastern at Lavelle Edwards Stadium. That's 1:30 out there in the Mountain Time in Provo, Utah. So Virginia has 7 rematches on its schedule this year. This is the one where the opponent will be out for revenge instead of the other way around. Virginia, of its 2 wins in 2013, one came in the season opener against BYU, a team that then went on to win 8 games, including a complete shellacking of Texas in week number 2. It's a group that Virginia knows pretty well. It's led by a quarterback in Taysom Hill, who is quickly rising up into Heisman discussion, multi-threat guy. Eli Harold said earlier this week reminds him a little bit of Tim Tebow and the way he plays and the way how physical of a runner he is. But Virginia did a good job of shutting him down last year. Hootie, if you remember, that was the first game for Taysom Hill as a starter with Robert Anae as the offensive coordinator. They run this hurry-up pace. Looked a little out of sorts that day. A lot of things happened. There was rain. There was a 2-hour delay. They were on the road, things of that nature. But Virginia's defense really held its own.
They really did. And after that game, Hill seemed to find his stride. He and the coordinator got on the same page, and it appeared to me that he really started to understand that offense and make it go. And I was so impressed with the way he is able to either on predetermined runs or just when things break down or his receivers are covered, he can go and get that first down with ease. And I think that's something Virginia's going to be very leery of, is him being able to move the chains and keep that fast-paced offense going. See, I don't care how good your defense is. If they're moving the ball like that, you're going to get tired, and things start breaking down when you get tired. So he's a legitimate Heisman Trophy candidate. I don't know if he'll beat out guys like Mariota, but he can beat you with his arm or his leg, and so it's definitely one of the keys to the game. Yeah, 6'2", 232 pounds, just a big physical guy. He's basically built like his running back, Jamal Williams, at 6 foot 206. That duo is real powerful coming at you out of the backfield. But I think if there's a key to beating them, it's making them throw a little bit. Here in Charlottesville last year, completed only 13 of 40 passes. And I think that was a big reason why Virginia limited that team to 16 points. Virginia won the game 19-16. Obviously, Taysom Hill threw that pick at the end where he kind of slipped off Jamal Williams' fingers in the flat. Anthony Harris collects his first of what would become his nation's leading 8 interceptions. Laterals to Henry Coley, takes down to the 13. Kevin Parks, next play, plows ahead for a touchdown. And Virginia kind of stole one, and that's how everybody felt that day. We're outgained in a lot of categories, stuff like that. But at the end of the day, they got the win. Now, you mentioned defending the dual threat quarterbacks. Virginia's obviously seen Brent Hundley this year. Handled him pretty good, with the exception of one drive.
I think he ended up with 15 carries for 39 yards, a bulk of it coming on UCLA's one scoring drive, and that was in the second half. And there's been a couple scores this year, or more than a few times, the very few times that teams have been able to score on Virginia's defense. It's happened in that fourth quarter. Saturday, that could be an issue because they're playing at altitude out there in Provo. And, if this defense doesn't really sub a lot, they might have to on Saturday. You think they can handle, and that's a lot of elements to thrown at them. BYU's fast-paced offense at elevation and against Virginia defense hasn't subbed a whole lot to this point this year.
Yeah, I think they probably will have to play more players and just to keep their legs fresh. I really don't buy the altitude thing because the last time Virginia played out there, it didn't seem to really bother them that much. It was a shootout. We went into the wee hours of the morning, went down to the last play of the game, I think. Virginia intercepted a pass in the end zone, and both teams had like 40 points. But I think the thing that they're going to have to be focused on is it is a road game, and they haven't played one in a while. And the fact that that pace, if things are not going well, that pace that they're so accustomed to can kill you. And I think it's going to have more to do with disrupting that and not letting them control the pace of the game and dictating what Virginia does.
Certainly Virginia's seen a lot of this high-paced offense over the last couple of years. You think back to playing BYU last year, playing Oregon, playing Clemson, already this year playing UCLA and playing Louisville. That was a team that liked to get up and down the field. And for the most part, Richmond liked to, they were quick. Remember that first drive. So they should be used to it. But again, you mentioned on the road could be a different issue. So we'll, again, continue looking forward to that game in our next segment as we kind of break this one down for the final time, give our prediction of Virginia and BYU. All right, prediction time here on the Cavalier Insider pregame show, Week 4 edition. Virginia taking on the 21st ranked BYU Cougars. UVA at 2-1 on a 2-game winning streak. Haven't had that in a while. And BYU at 3-0 as we get to make our prediction. Game played at Lavelle Edwards Stadium, 3:30 on Saturday. You talked about kind of the road thing being amongst all its other challenges, maybe the toughest. This is a bit of an intimidating atmosphere. You saw a lot of BYU fans here in Charlottesville last year. That'll be a tough task for sure, and Virginia's got to travel across the country. All those things, and we talked about streaks. Last week they ended 3 streaks. They ended the ACC losing streak, the FBS losing streak, and the ranked opponents losing streak. Well, they got another streak on the line here. It's been 5 games since they've won a game on the road. Last one was 2012 in November when it knocked off NC State 33-6 down in Raleigh. And so because of that, I'm going to give BYU just the slight edge. Like I said last week, I couldn't pick Virginia. I wanted to, but I couldn't because I hadn't seen them win that kind of game yet. Well, I haven't seen them win this kind of game yet. Tough opponent on the road. So I'm going to say BYU comes in, takes care of its home turf there and wins this thing 23-10. And Virginia drops to 2-2. But I still think that the next week is Kent State, and Virginia to get 3 wins out of that first month of the season is significant progress.
Absolutely, I agree. I had them losing this game to begin before the season started. And even though Virginia has improved and showed that they can win this kind of game, again, they haven't shown they can win it on the road. I still think BYU is the best team that they've played so far this season. And I got to give it to BYU by 10. I'm going to say 27-17. But again, I think it's going to be a number of things. The road and the pace of the game is going to be tough to overcome.
Yeah, certainly. This will be Virginia is the only team in the country to play 3 AP-ranked top 25 teams within its first 4 games. A lot of talk about that schedule going into this year. To this point, Virginia's held its own, so maybe it completely pays off by knocking off BYU. We'll find out on Saturday. But until then, thanks for watching. That will do it for Jerry Ratcliffe. I'm Andrew Anspacker. That does it for our Week 4 show.